Welcome, welcome everyone. When I was going up through the amateur ranks, and I started as a newcomer like anyone else, working myself up through the championship level and ultimately professional levels. My big question was, gosh, how do I find the teacher that's going to produce the best results for me? So today I'm going to share the story of how I found my coaches. And I know everyone's story is a little different. I thought you might enjoy hearing about this. So I started out in a tiny local dance studio, social level instructor. He came out of a Fred Astaire chain originally, though he had long since left that studio, started his own studio, was an independent instructor, but just a low social level instructor, but will forever be grateful to him for cultivating that joy of ballroom dance in me and inspiring me to want to be better. He's the one actually that very first said, hey, you really need to compete. You're talented. And I thought, this guy's crazy. And look what I ended up doing. So, props to him for giving me much needed encouragement in those very first few lessons. Okay. Anyway, after taking several privates a week, actually, for 2-3 years, I did see, I was not blind to the fact there were other dancers in town that were better than me. And they all appeared to be taking from the same teacher. So I did leave that teacher respectfully. I can tell you in another video if you want to know kind of how to break up with your teacher in a kind way. And I shifted to that teacher because I thought, well, I definitely need to take with a teacher that's producing more successful competitors, okay? And so the teacher that I switched to was not exponentially better. He came out of the Arthur Murray chain, so he had competed in the Open Pro Smooth. So, he was a lower level pro. I mean, not like an elite level, but certainly competent enough to teach through syllabus, at least bronze and silver. And so after we took with him for, maybe 2 years, and we had kind of progressed from competing locally to competing regionally, I saw in a neighboring state, I don't really want to specify where and who, because I wouldn't want anyone to feel I was embarrassing them or saying they're a bad teacher. None of these people were bad teachers. They were all an integral part to me being the dancer I am today. So anyway, dancing regionally, it was like, wow, the people in this other larger city within driving distance are much better than any of the competitors coming out of my city. So who are they taking lessons with? So I progressed on to driving several hours a week to take many lessons, privates with this person who was teaching better students. And kind of quickly, honestly, outgrew that coach, took with as many visiting coaches as I could. Fortunately, all these teachers were very supportive of me taking with better coaches, and those better coaches were encouraging me, hey, you need better teachers yet if you're serious about your goals. So after competing internationally and going to a couple IDSF world ranking events, as well as a couple national championships, I could see that there were exponentially better dancers coming out of other regions of the country. And at that point, I didn't even dream that I would ever be at Blackpool, but I definitely was like, well, I want to be like those people. I'm not just going to be stuck at making one round in pre-champ at nationals. I want more. So I did notice at these International Dance Sport Federation World Ranking events, as well as the USA Dance National Championships, all of the elite level, championship level competitors, meaning semifinals, finalists, were all coming out of Manhattan. And I was like, well, obviously there's some sort of really good ballroom teacher there. Who is it? And that's who I need to take from. So I just asked one of these couples, like, hey, where do you get lessons from? Because honestly, these people looked like clones in my untrained eye at that time. In that semifinal, that final, I could just tell they were obviously taking from the same coach. And so they told me it was Jonathan Wilkins and Katusha Demidova. They teach out of the Ballroom on 5th in Manhattan. So of course, as soon as I got back home from nationals that year, I hit the internet and say, okay, well, how can I contact these people and get lessons? And so it was a sobering, quick lesson to find out you can't just contact these people and get lessons. I couldn't find contact info for them at all. Because naturally they are fully booked, these elite level pros. It's kind of like, I imagine like trying to get gymnastics private with Bella Caroli or something, So, I did some R&D though, did my legwork and discovered that they, since they were teaching at the Ballroom on 5th, I sent a snail mail letter because I couldn't even find an email for these people. And I was just like, to Jonathan Wilkins and Katusha Demidova in care of the Ballroom on 5th. And I sent it to this dance studio where they were independent instructors. They weren't owners, they weren't employees, but I was just like, I'm praying, well, I hope this gets through because I so want to get in with these people. And I heard nothing back. So I was like, as far as I know, they never even got the letter. And even if they did, I'm, so inferior to obviously all their other couples, which was true, that, they're not going to want to teach me. So it was maybe 4 or 5 months later at the Ohauster Ball, which you might recognize from that PBS championship ballroom dancing show. Well, it's a legit comp. It's the largest Pro-Am comp, in fact, in the country every year. So I was there competing in syllabus, bronze and silver. And at that comp, it's huge. So they start at the crack of dawn. And the lower level dancers like me, they ran very, very early. So my heat started at 7 a.m. So I danced my heats, made the finals, won both my events. And then as soon as we got our medals or trophies or whatever they give you at that comp, I can't remember, done a lot of comps. This couple comes up to us and introduces themselves and like, hey, I'm Jonathan, I'm Katusha. We got your letter about taking with us. And my partner and I, our jaws just about dropped. It'd be like, I don't know. If you were a fan of some famous singer like Taylor Swift or something, and she came up to her after a concert like, hi, I just want to introduce myself. I'm Taylor. Would you like lessons? Like, we just were starstruck. We could hardly speak. Anyway, so Jonathan, although they did come down, and I was so flattered that they had actually bothered to get up at the crack of dawn at a comp they were competing at really late that night to watch us and see, hey, maybe we're interested in teaching these people. So to say I was starstruck, A, and B, flattered beyond flattered also. And they were like, hey, we see you have potential. We fly in at least once a month to Utah. We have a couple out there that flies us out for their kids, blah, blah, blah. They put us in contact with the parents of those people and said, you can probably book some lessons with us through them. So we did that, flew out, took as many as we could. And we were just gobsmacked by how amazing their lessons were. And it was just, we were so fortunate at that time to be able to fly so nearby at Utah. Eventually, however, they did stop flying to Utah for coaching just because they got so heavily booked, both in New York, and they were living part-time in England because that's where their coaches were at that point. They had a home there in London. So we were very lucky to get in kind of when it was earlier on in their professional careers in the US before they just completely booked up. So in a nutshell, I could see who were the exponentially better dancers than me in town, regionally, nationally, internationally, and I sought out those teachers, okay? Now, I'm not saying every teacher is, that teaches all the top people is the best for you, because everyone does learn differently. And as my coaches, really people I really respect, said, you should probably find a home coach, even if they're not the best, that you trust. So certainly finding someone local that, if you get at a minimum, I call it getting supervised practice from, just to minimize disagreements, hold you through until you get to your favorite coaches. I do think that's helpful for cultivating a long-term successful partnership. Also, teachers do teach differently. For example, some people are very artistic in how they conceptualize dancing. Other people learn visually, or they're audio learners, or they're very mechanical. They need to understand why I need to do something the way I do. Others are kinesthetic. I need to feel how it feels to learn it. And so usually, not always, but usually teachers are best at teaching the way that, spoke to their heart when they were going up through the ranks. So you do need to find a teacher that kind of speaks your language of learning. And so that's another just kind of helpful hint for you. And I found for Jonathan and Katusha, they spoke my language of learning as well as my partner's really well. Okay. So we started taking with them when they stopped flying to Utah. We regularly flew to New York, probably once a month, and we would stay for 10 days at a time, and we would take as many privates as they were willing to book for us every single day. And after we had taken with them, maybe a year, 2 years, it had been a while. We had taken a lot of privates from them. They were like, well, you really need to graduate and take with our coaches if you want to get to even higher levels internationally. Because you're only going to be as good as your coaches, yada, yada, which I thought never occurred to me. And honestly, I loved my coaches. I still do. I still think their coachings were, longer term more helpful for me than these visiting coaches. But certainly politically, they had a really good point. I don't regret any of the lessons I ever took, even ones I didn't like, because I learned different ways to communicate information, which is a pro I found to be very helpful. So if you do have goals in your career to teach, although I didn't at the time, I'm very grateful I did take from different people just so I could learn to share information in a different way, because maybe I heard something that totally didn't work for me. Artsy teachers don't work so much for the way I understand, but I do have some students that seem to conceptualize things that way. And so I can be like, oh, well, this lady taught it that way. It didn't work for me, but I'll say it that way. And they're like, oh, I get it. So I think that's kind of an interesting piece of finding your sweet spot for which coaches are going to work for you. So anyway, my coaches, Jonathan and Katusha, encouraged us to take with their coaches, firstly when they would fly into Manhattan, and then of course later when we started competing internationally, we would take with their coaches in London, which these are also amazing coaches you can't just call and get in with. You kind of need to know someone who knows someone, or they know who you are. So I'm just eternally grateful to my coaches for so many, not only the lessons they've given me, but the opportunities to take with, I'll say, just people I've worshiped in my dance career that I just think the world of, and they're kind of like legends. And I'm like, wow, I can't even believe I met that person or saw that person, let alone got lessons. I'm just so grateful to every teacher I've ever had, because I've learned so much from all of them. So anyway, I hope that's been an interesting story and helpful. And if you have any questions, hey, comment below. And if you are a fan of all sorts of things ballroom dance, hey, subscribe to my channel, because I post totally different stuff every day about the real world of ballroom dance and kind of what it's like to be a professional ballroom dancer. So have an amazing day, and hey, happy Thanksgiving today. Thanks for joining me. Hope you're having a good day. Bye, guys.